Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Bible reading once more. It is Tuesday, January 26th, and we're here to do our 4 Bible readings. Our first is going to be Genesis 27, Matthew 26, Esther chapter 3, and finally our beautiful book of Acts, where we go out and do the work of God in Acts 26. We are here to read, to glean, and beam for Jesus. I'm so glad you're here with us this morning because you're in for a treat. These chapters are mind-blowing, and we begin with the first one in Genesis chapter 27. We see now that Isaac is now having his 2 children, and he's old in age. He has Jacob and Esau, and Isaac's realizing he needs to pronounce his blessing. Remember, the birthright belongs to the oldest. They get 2/3 of all the property, and everyone else has to split the third. And now he's going to pronounce the blessing to inherit the birthright. But remember, as we read in the previous chapter, that Esau already gave up his birthright to his brother. So in a sense, he kind of gave up the blessing as well. The blessing and birthright go together. And so now he's completing, as it were, the task. Does Jacob do what is right? No, this is wrong, what Jacob is doing. But he already had the birthright. The completion would now be the blessing. And so Isaac now tells his older son Esau, go hunt, take your bow, take your hunting gear, kill an animal, bring it back, let me eat it, and then I will bless you. This was Jacob's way of telling Isaac's way of telling his son, I want you to prepare everything so that you can be prepared to be blessed. It's a whole ritual. And so excited, Esau he went out, but secretively Rebekah, his wife, heard what was going on and went over, killed an animal, told Jacob, go give it to your father and take the blessing. Notice Jacob's response. He says, I can't, my brother is a hairy man and I'm smooth-skinned. He's going to know. And she's like, no, the man is blind. He can't really see you that well. I'm going to put some animal skins on you. I'm going to put your brother's clothes on you, and I'm going to give you the animal. Make sure you go and take it. What did Jacob do? He went with his mother's plan and he did it. He takes the father's game and he lied to his father 3 different times. The first is Isaac called Jacob and he asked him, who are you? And he's like, I am Esau. And then Isaac was kind of quiet. Then the second time he called him closer and he felt his arms and he felt hairy, which he felt the hairiness of his son, and he smelled him and he's like, man, it sounds like Jacob, but it feels like Esau. And then he ate the food, and then he said, come here again, the 3rd time, come here, my son. And then he kissed him, and he smelled him, and he felt him, and he's like, okay, this in fact is Esau. And then Isaac blessed Jacob. He blessed him. He says, your brother is going to be your servant. May everything that you touch grow and prosper. Those who curse you, may they be cursed as well. Those who bless you, may they be blessed. And then Jacob left. Not too long after, Esau walks in and says, Father, I'm here. And Isaac is in a panic. He's like, wait, who was that I blessed? And Esau's now in a panic as well. He's like, well, bless me, Father, bless me. And Isaac's like, I can't. I gave you the blessing. I already gave the blessing away. And to me, and to you, it might sound strange. Why not just give another blessing? It doesn't make sense. But here in this time, words matter. Blessings matter. And in this context, in this situation, this is a sacred blessing that could only be given once. It can't be given multiple times. Once it's given, it's given. And so now Esau is in a panic and he's angry. He said, first he takes my birthright, then he takes my blessing. I'm going to kill him. He says, please bless me. And the only blessing that Isaac had left to him was like, well, I gave him everything. May you just prosper. And then he gives him some really weird thing that you got to be a slave to your brother. And he was furious. He was angry. And Rebekah heard it. She's like, I'm going to send you to my father's land because at least you'll be safe. And maybe Esau's anger will subside and then he'll forget about this, which is not true. But, in her mind, she thought that would happen. And then notice she says at the very end of the chapter that she didn't want Jacob to marry one of the women who are here, one of the Hittites. She says, what would my life be worth? Because she knew that Isaac went to her father's land to marry one of their own. She does not want Jacob to fall in line as Esau is and going astray and going his own way and following other gods instead of the Lord. And so Rebekah had a method to her madness, but it was deceitful. And that was the journey that Jacob lived, continued, and we see later on is going to continue to reign in his life. But what a beautiful thing of the blessing. What a beautiful thing of the birthright. But to deceive and to cheat and to steal is a method to us. is a reminder to us. We may seek good things, we may want good things, and they may be good and holy things, but if we go at them deceitfully, wrongly, what good is it? Because we only push people away from God. We only push people away from serving God. We only model something just wrong, where people say, yes, you do certain things, but you're doing it wrongly. It actually pushes people away in the opposite direction. Something to keep in mind as Christians as we serve God. The next chapter is Matthew chapter 26, and this is where it gets closer to the death and crucifixion of Jesus. Jesus right now is telling his disciples that, hey, he's going to be arrested, he's going to be killed, and this is all going somewhere. And then, Jesus obviously is known by the elders and high priests that he's coming, and they say, we can't kill Jesus here because it's going to cause a riot. The high priests, the Pharisees, they know that Jesus is who he is, and they don't like what he's doing to their, following. People are decreasing, people aren't, funding them as much because they're following Jesus, and so they want to kill him, but they can't because Passover is this huge festival. And so many people love Jesus that it would cause a riot. So Jesus actually goes to Bethany, goes to a house for a celebration before the Passover. And it doesn't say here, but it says in other Gospels, it's actually Mary Magdalene who comes and gets this perfume that's worth probably over a year's worth of wages. Imagine your money, a year's worth of wages, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. She put it in this perfume, anointed Jesus, and washed him with her hair and with her tears. And people were upset. This is a waste of money. It should have been given to the poor. And Jesus says these words, you will always have the poor. You won't always have me. The relationship we have with God must be paramount. It must be before all things. Everything we do for God must be first and foremost and priority. Everything else follows suit. Everything else comes secondary. And Mary Magdalene knew that. She knew the mistakes she'd made. She knew that the life she lived, but she wanted to dedicate it and give it all to God. And she did that. What a testimony to choosing God above all else. Despite what we have done in the past, we want to give it to God. And that was Mary Magdalene. Jesus then took his disciples until the upper room where they're going to have the Last Supper, as it were. And Jesus was sharing with them, one of you are going to betray me. And everyone's like, wait, how is this possible? We follow you, we live with you for this past 3 years. Why would anyone do such a thing? And Jesus is getting the bread, and as he dips it, he says, it's the one who dips in the bowl with me, and it's Judas. And Judas is like, wait, me? Really? At this point, I feel like Judas is not in shock. He's more scared that he's being exposed, because Jesus obviously knows, and this is the time Jesus chose to expose him, is during this intimate moment where he's not feeling attacked, he's not being pushed out. He's saying, Jesus is like opening his heart. It's like, this is an intimate second, intimate moment. I want you to know, I know what you're going to do. And Judas could have changed his mind. He could have repented. He could have changed course, but he didn't. In fact, Jesus says, whatever you're going to do it quickly. He didn't say go and do it. He says, whatever you're going to choose, do it now. Make the decision now. And Judas went out and he betrayed Jesus. And Jesus then took the bread and took the wine and he spread it out. And he told them the importance of this to forgive sins and to give new life. Jesus then said, the shepherd's going to be struck and all the sheep are going to scatter. And he says, but you disciples, come with me now. And as he's doing this, Peter says, I'll never deny you, I'll never run. And Jesus says, look, Peter, before the cock crows 3 times, you are going to betray me. Talk about open heart, emotional moment here. First to Judas and now to Peter. Jesus is really in a place where he's being completely transparent with his disciples, as we're about to see right now, because he wants them to know how much he loves them, how much he cares for them, and that as much as they hurt him, he loves them anyway. Because now he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane, and 3 times he prays. He tells Peter and the sons of Zebedee, sit here. He took him a little further than the other disciples, his inner circle, as it were. Stay here. Please pray for me. I need you to pray. Lift me up. I need you right now. And he goes and he prays and he comes back. They're asleep. He wakes them up. He goes a second time. He gives it all to God again, his Father. He comes back. They're asleep. The 3rd time he comes, he's like, get up. It's time to go. Jesus was constantly trying to encourage his disciples, but they kept failing and failing and failing. But Jesus never gives up. Jesus never gives up. And that's a sign, a reminder to us to never give up. Judas then returns with a mob. And he comes to Jesus, and the sign is he kisses him. He kisses him, and then the mob comes to him. In the Gospel of John, I like what it says happens, that they all fall down as they see him because of Jesus' brightening, blinding light of the Holy Spirit, or God as it were, his godly form. Here that doesn't happen. Just as they come, Peter pulls out a sword. Well, it doesn't say Peter. In another Gospel it does. And he cuts off the ear of Malchus, which also isn't here. And then Jesus puts it back on. He says, those who live by the sword, die by the sword. Put it away, Peter. And Peter does. Jesus is taken. And the disciples, as Jesus prophesied, scatter. They run. But Peter doesn't. He follows Jesus where this mob takes him into the high priest's house. And they begin to spread all these sorts of lies, untrue statements about Jesus. And he remains silent. He doesn't defend himself. Until finally the high priest says, tell me, are you the Messiah, the Son of God? And Jesus says, yeah, I am. And they spit on him. He tears his clothes. He's like, let's have him killed. Meanwhile, outside of the courtyard of this house, Peter's there. And all these people who are there saying, hey, aren't you one of those guys? Peter immediately denies it. Then another time, second time, they ask him, we think we've seen you with him. I'm pretty sure it's you. And he denies it again. Then the third time they say, your accent gives you away. You are definitely a Galilean follower of this guy. Peter curses and says, I told you I'm not with this man. 3 times. And then the cock crows. I don't know about you, but when you allow fear to come in the way of your faith, there's nothing that hurts more when you realize, when you know what you should do and you don't do it. And then you see the results of the devastation of not standing in faith. There's nothing worse in life than that. Not just with your faith in God, but with jobs, opportunities, with your family, with your kids. When you allow fear to come in the way of your faith, where you know God has called you, there's no worse feeling than that. But the beauty is, God is still in the business of changing lives and restoring people. And he does that with Peter, and he can do that with you as well. Let's look at the book of Esther. Let's see what's going on over here. Esther chapter 3, we read here that King Ahasuerus has just named this man named Haman of Hammedatha, the Agagite, to be in control, like second in command. And he's so pious, he's so powerful, he believes that he belongs where he is, and now he's a ruler, and so he has this arrogance and pride about him that he is deserving of worship, as it were. As the king is, you bow to the Lord, you say, my Lord, you say, my king, you have this respect as if he's a god on earth. Well, Haman thought he deserved the same thing, and so as he was going down on his horse with his group, a lot of people were bowing down, but Mordecai the Jew refused to do it because they believe in only one Lord and only one God, the God of the universe, the God who created all things, the God who brought them out of bondage. This is the God they believe, who they serve, not a man. And Mordecai refused to bow down. And it says that Haman couldn't stand it, but he couldn't show it because this is beneath him. He should be above it, but he's not. And so he finds out what religion he is. He finds out what people he belongs to. And he decides to destroy them because Mordecai doesn't bow to him. Can you imagine the childishness of this? Can you imagine the obscene pride, the arrogance to demand one person to bow to you, and because they don't, you want to annihilate their entire people? This is the spirit of the enemy. And it is in Haman's mind, it is in his body, and he follows through because he comes to the king. He says, look, there's a group of people out there who don't believe our ways, who don't acknowledge our laws, who might actually turn this kingdom over. Completely twisting of the truth, completely twisting about these people and their ethic and their way of life and their living, that he comes to him and he lies to him simply because he does not bow to him. But what does the king do? He trusts him because he's a second in command. He's shown himself worthy. You see, one part in our life could destroy the rest. We could be good and ethical and moral and following God in so many ways, but one area the enemy gets in could bring it all down. That's why we need to wear the full armor of God, cover every part of our lives, pray and dedicate our lives in every single way. Because this, honestly, I'm not saying this could happen to you, but this is how the enemy works. And this is how he used Haman. He came to him and allowed himself to think he was all that and demanding of this, and then he wanted to kill the entire people. And so the message was sent out, the king agreed, and now there is a death sentence on a certain day of a certain month coming up that all Jews are to be annihilated. Wow. Crazy. Crazy, 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 crazy. Let's now turn to our final chapter, Acts chapter 26. Oh, I love this chapter because it's Paul actually standing before King Agrippa, the king himself. And this has been a build-up for the past couple verses and chapters. He's finally meeting the king and he's sharing with him. And the king sits down. He says, all right, what's going on here? Who is this? Who is this? You? Are you Paul? Okay, what is this? Why is this such an issue? What's going on? And so Paul begins to share. He's like, hey, look, I was like these Jews, born and raised, most excellency, just like them. I was of a strict, devout sect of the Pharisees. I knew what they believed. I lived it my whole life. And I actually went after these Christians. I actually killed them. Not only did I kill them and participate, I actually went to other cities to try and bring them back and kill them. I was so zealous for this. He says, but something happened. As I was going in the middle of the day at noon, where the sun's at its peak, a blinding light flashed and Jesus himself appeared to me. And he told me, I want you to be a witness of what's happening right now, what you see right now. Testify to everyone that you know and met who I am. Preach the forgiveness of sins. Preach to others to come back to me and to follow the right way. And Paul says, since then I've done that. I've preached everywhere. I've talked to everyone about the resurrection of the dead. And right there, boom, the King Agrippa comes in and he's like, wait a second. You are insane. You are insane. You've read too much. You're studying books too much. It's made you a little cuckoo. And then Paul says, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy at all. In fact, this is the best way to live life. This is the best way to understand what God is about. But I'm speaking to you the sober truth, verse 25. And as he continued to go, he says, do you believe the prophets? Do you believe in the Old Testament? King Agrippa interrupted again. He's like, wait, are you trying to now convert me? You're on trial. This guy, what kind of audacity do you have? Defend yourself. Don't try and convert me. And Paul says these words, whether quickly to convince you or not, I pray to God that not only you, but also all who are listening to me today might become such as I am, except for these chains. And the king says, this man's done nothing to being killed or put in prison. Nothing. Why are we here? Well, since he appeared to Rome, since he appeared to the emperor, I guess he has to go to the emperor because he's a Roman citizen. If he wants to go see him, he gets to go see him. Otherwise, I would have let him go. So Paul, you got to go to the emperor now. Now, I find this fascinating in the book, this Bible that we're reading, these readings we're finding, is that it's constantly reminding us to stand for God. Go where God is leading. Go where God is telling us to go. And when we don't, all these crazy things happen. We don't know where sin leads in the details, but we know ultimately it leads to death. If we don't stand in faith, we stand in fear and we follow the enemy's route. So my encouragement to you is continually read, continually glean, continually beam, burn brighter and brighter as the noonday, and you and I will see where God takes us. God bless you.